Hello, and in today's video we're doing Premier League predictions for match week number 28 of the 2023 to 24 season. And this week we have got what is known as a double game week. That's right, Bournemouth are playing twice, as are Luton Town, as Bournemouth host Sheffield United and Luton on Saturday and Wednesday respectively. So should be an interesting match week. Obviously, it's the one important game at the big part of the table. The Manchester City-Liverpool game is absolutely massive. The final time that Jurgen Klopp will face Pep Guardiola in the Premier League is going to be an emotional one. And hopefully, in the cases of the neutral, a thrilling one. Because we know Liverpool, the last few seasons, have been the one kind of Achilles heel to Manchester City's title charge, and they're one sort of kryptonite to get that title. Now, they got the title in 2020 in that COVID season. They haven't since, and Man City have just been an unstoppable force. So, can Liverpool stop City in Klopp's final season, or will Arsenal be getting the title this time after learning from their experience last season? Well, that's the question. They've got Brentford at home, Arsenal, this weekend, which is a game which is not easy on paper. Brentford defensively this season have struggled, but we know Brentford are very good against the big six teams, or the traditional big six teams. So they drew that game last season at 1-1 at the Emirates. So I definitely think Brentford will pose a tough test to Arsenal, and can Arsenal deal with the pressure of playing first and going potentially top before Liverpool and City play each other? Should be really interesting. Obviously, you've got, after the international break and the FA Cup and everything, you've got the Liverpool game against Brighton. Meanwhile, Arsenal take on Man City. So it's very, very important these next couple of weeks in the context of the title race. And I just wonder if things will shift, if there's a certain way of results this weekend. But we'll start off by kicking off with match week number 28's first game. And it's at Old Trafford. It's Manchester United against Everton. Now, coming into this, Manchester United have been a bit... they've been okay, don't get me wrong. They've not been as bad as they used to be this season. But they obviously got heavily beaten in the end by Manchester City in the in the Manchester derby, I should say. And yeah, look, the goal from Rashford was unbelievable. But the defending for the Manchester City goals, especially, the third one from Amrabat, was a lot to be desired. So I think, yeah, Man United will be a bit frustrated about how they kind of imploded in the second half. But in terms of their kind of recent wins, beating Aston Villa, is a good win against Luton. So Man United haven't got everything to complain about, but at the same time, this season is not looking good for their potential, chances of a top four place. But they'll keep fighting with Tottenham and Aston Villa for that spot. And I think Everton are much more kind of in danger of being dragged into a relegation fight. Even Man United pessimistic fans would agree with that. So Everton, they obviously had their 10-point deduction originally, got it reduced to 6 points. And so because of that, they were sat in the relegation zone, and now they're out of it. So Everton will be very relieved about that. Obviously, the game against West Ham, how Beto missed that penalty, I'm not quite sure. It was a terrible penalty, but he did make up for it and scored the goal. So I think Everton will go to Old Trafford with a bit of belief, because at least they created chances against West Ham. It's just felt like Areola was making saves everywhere. Ultimately, they do need more goals, Everton, and they started with Beto. They didn't go with Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and Everton just need more goals all over the pitch. It's as simple as that if they're going to win more football matches. and their away record, Everton, is quite simply not great. So I think Man United will get the win here. In the reverse fixture, of course, it was a 3-0 win for Manchester United with goals from Alejandro Garnacho, Anthony Martial, and Marcus Rashford. And we all remember that amazing Garnacho goal, probably goal of the season. Can Alejandro create some more magic on this game? Probably can. But I'll say Manchester United 2, Everton 1. Goal scorer for Everton, I think it'll be Abdoulaye Doucouré. And then for Man United, Garnacho. And the second for the Red Devils, we shall say, is going to be Scott McTominay. Now, it's Bournemouth versus Sheffield United. Bournemouth are a side who, yeah, they did really well, actually, in their win against Burnley. But I did think Burnley played the better. Although Bournemouth, do find ways to win games, they don't always play amazingly. And Burnley absolutely battered Bournemouth in terms of chances. It's just the problem with that Burnley team is they're just not clinical, and they were really, really wasteful. But Bournemouth scored a couple of really good goals, especially I thought the second one, a great strike from Antoine Semenyo. Also, there was a goal there for Justin Kluivert. And yeah, they face a Sheffield United side now who, I mean, they're just so desperately in the mud. People have compared them to the Derby side of 07-08. I don't think we can even do that because that Derby team were just ridiculous. But Sheffield United are really down in the dumps. And obviously, yeah, it's not going well for them at all. 6 goals against Arsenal. It really could have been more. And they just looked so lifeless and naive defensively. So I'm not feeling confident for Sheffield United ahead of this Bournemouth game. I think Bournemouth, if they do, play up well and they're sharp in their attack with Solanke and Kluivert and Semenyo and Tavernier, then yeah, Sheffield United could get really destroyed. But I'm going to say Bournemouth 2, Sheffield United 0. Goal scorers for Bournemouth will go for Ilya Zabarnyi, and the second for the Cherries, Dominic Solanke. Next up, it's Crystal Palace Luton. Now, I think this game is going to be quite interesting because it was obviously in the reverse game the first win of the season for Luton at Kenilworth Road, and it took Luton a long time to get that first home Premier League win, all the way in November. So I think Palace, they did obviously struggle. Goal from Eberechi Eze. Great to see him back from injury and doing well. But I think Palace still will have the upper hand, despite Luton's, fairly valiant performance in the Aston Villa game. Obviously, in the end, it came unstuck for them, and Luca Dean got the last minute goal. So I think Palace will probably score a couple here, but Luton will also score. I'll say Crystal Palace 2, Luton 1. Goal scorers here, I think Luton will score first, and it will be a goal from Alfie Doherty. But Palace goal scorers, let's go for Eberechi Eze, and the second for Palace, how about a bit of, we're going to say, in midfield, it's going to be the man, the myth, the legend, the former Watford man, Will Hughes. Come on, Hughesy. I don't even know if he's fit or ready to play, but anyway, we're going to go for it because Watford till we die. We play Coventry, by the way, today, and I don't even, at this point, I'm just like, if we lose, we lose. If we win, we win. At this point, our team is just so in the mud. It's not looking good. Wolves, Fulham. Now, Wolves, they are looking pretty interesting. Obviously, the injuries to Hwang and Cunha have not helped things, and they got fairly battered by Newcastle last week. Fulham, on the other hand, well, they actually battered Brighton. So I think you'd fancy Fulham based on current form, but I think this is going to be a score draw. I think Fulham against Wolves, their games are always quite tight. Obviously, 3-2 to Fulham in the reverse game. And I think Fulham will score, but I will go for Wolves 1, Fulham 1. Wolves goal scorer will go for Pablo Sarabia. And for Fulham, I think there'll be a goal from Rodrigo Muniz. Now, Arsenal take on Brentford. London derby at the Emirates. and it is huge for Arsenal's title charge. Now, do I think Arsenal blow Brentford away? Absolutely not, because this is a pretty tricky game. Because yes, Brentford haven't quite looked themselves this season. Obviously, without David Raya in goal, and they've not scored as many goals with the likes of Johan Wissa this season. But obviously, the injury to Mbeumo's obviously not helped either. But I still think Arsenal get a couple here. I still think, this might not be an easy game, but it's also a winnable game for Arsenal. So I'll say Arsenal 2, Brentford nil. And goal scorers for Arsenal, we're going to go for Bukayo Saka. And the second for the Gunners, it's Gabriel Magalhaes. Now, Arsenal, they will be facing Brentford, but who will their North London rivals take on? Well, it's Aston Villa going into Sunday's games, and it's an early kickoff of 1 o'clock, so make sure you don't miss this one. Should be a cracker at Villa Park, because it's two sides that really like to attack and don't like to defend, so it could be any scoreline really. But I think Aston Villa, their home form this season has just been so strong, and Tottenham, obviously they'd lost recently to Wolves, but then they got that win against Palace. I think this is going to be another draw. I just feel like this is going to be two sides who are going to go for it, and they won't be able to be separated. So I'll say Aston Villa 2, Tottenham 2. Villa's goal scorers, I'll say Ollie Watkins, and we'll also go for a goal from, how about Douglas Luiz. But then Spurs goal scorers, how about we say Son Heung-min, and we'll go for, off the bench, Brennan Johnson. Now it's Brighton against Nottingham Forest. This is a game I think genuinely Brighton could take Forest to the cleaners. Now, I know that Forest, obviously, last week against Liverpool were pretty unlucky in the end to lose that game, because they held out Liverpool for a long, long time. And obviously the controversy of that drop ball given back to Liverpool, which was wrong in the end from Paul Tierney. But I still think Brighton, on their day, they can score goals. And I know that they lost heavily to Fulham, and they were very bad against Fulham, but I still think Brighton are just too good to keep losing these kind of points that we don't expect them to. So I think Brighton will get a few here. I know obviously their loss against Roma in the Europa League will have really hurt them, and they'll probably be looking, one eye towards that second leg, thinking, oh, if we can somehow achieve some unimaginable comeback, maybe get some players ready for that second tie. Obviously, they'll have home advantage in that one. So, I don't know. I think it's a bit pointless, though, to prepare them for that, because the tie is pretty much done. Roma for looking pretty confident to go through. So, there's possibly that on the horizon. But you also have to think about Brighton. They want to finish the season strong. And I think De Zerbi might change up a few of the players, but I think they'll keep most of them. So, I'll say Brighton 3, Nottingham Forest 1. Goal scorers here for Nottingham Forest, I think there'll be a goal from Morgan Gibbs-White. And then for Brighton, we'll say goals from Pascal Gross. Then another goal for Brighton from Simon Adingra. And the third goal for Brighton is going to be Buonanotte. And now it's West Ham Burnley. This is a game I can see being also a home win, because, look, at the end of the day, West Ham, they have obviously not had the best of seasons, but when you face a Burnley side that are in the absolute free fall that they are, you just fancy West Ham in this one. Now, West Ham, obviously, last week, it was an important win against Everton. They got the job done late on, and a fantastic goal from Thomas Souček, it has to be said, who actually, funnily enough, has a great record against Burnley. So Burnley will be worried with the set pieces that West Ham can do, and the way that they defend set pieces, the Clarets, they'll be a bit concerned. But I think West Ham will get the job done here. West Ham 2, Burnley 1. And goal scorers, I think Burnley's goal scorer will be a bit of a surprise one, but Charlie Taylor. And then for West Ham, I'm going to say, first of all, it's a goal from the forward. That is, well, I kind of say forward, but, looks like a forward at the moment, Jared Bowen. And the second one for West Ham is going to be Vladimir Coufal. Okay, now the big one, Liverpool Man City at Anfield, and it's live. This is huge, absolutely huge. 3:45. Do not miss this one. This game genuinely could be colossal. And I just hope that for Klopp's sake, the last time he'll face Pep Guardiola in the Premier League, that iconic battle over the last, what, I don't know, even, it feels like it's not been that long, but genuinely it's been about, what, so 16-17, since 16-17 season. It's been titanic. Obviously, it started properly in the 17-18 season with that title challenge. You obviously had, the huge game at the Etihad, the 5-0. Then you had the 4-3 at Liverpool. You had obviously the season after that, the tight margins of that season, the John Stones clearance. You had the Mahrez penalty miss. The season after that, Liverpool getting the title, and City fumbling it for once, which very rarely happens. Then you have City coming back strong in the behind closed doors season. And yeah, I mean, Alisson having a shocker in that game, in that season, a couple of times for the goals. Then you had the season after where Liverpool pushed it all the way to the final day, and it was just at the final hurdle. City managed to beat Villa, and it was just very, very dramatic stuff. You had the season last season as well, where you kind of think for a long time in Liverpool they might have been in with a shout of challenging City, but yeah, it just fell away for Liverpool last season, and it ended up being Arsenal, and then City end up taking the spoils from Arsenal, who started to crumble. So yeah, look, at the end of the day, this is a huge game, but I do think if there's one team that can stop City, it is Liverpool, because we've seen Liverpool do it before. So I'm going to cheer on a Liverpool win, but whether they can get that or not, let's see. Liverpool 2, Manchester City 1. Foden to score for Man City. And for Liverpool, I'll say 1 from Mohamed Salah, who's back from injury after he came on in the Europa League. And then the second for Liverpool, who's going to be the man to take the headline, to get the win for the Reds? I think it's going to be Luis Diaz. And finally, the last few games, we've got Chelsea against Newcastle, and it's on the Monday Night Football. These are two sides that are, hoping to get some sort of European football this season, if they can finish in the top 6 or 7 or so. And yeah, Chelsea this season, obviously they've had their struggles. They lost in the Carabao Cup final, and yeah, last week it was ultimately, I mean, how do I put it? Last week, it was not the worst performance. At the end of the day, it was an okay draw against Brentford, but they got the job done to kind of win back the points in that game, I suppose. Whereas Newcastle were fantastic against Wolves, so I don't think it's going to be an easy test for Chelsea. Obviously, Newcastle absolutely walloped them in the reverse game 4-1, but that was when they had Joel Linton and all these players. So I think Newcastle's injuries will definitely hurt them. Obviously, Trippier's now going to be out for this one as well. I fancy Chelsea, I think, with the home advantage to get a fairly comfortable win. So Chelsea 2, Newcastle 1. Newcastle's goal scorer, of course, it will be Anthony Gordon. He loves facing Chelsea. And then Chelsea's goals will come from, firstly, we'll say one of their fullbacks, which is Mr., believe it or not, Malo Gusto. But the second goal for Chelsea, I'm going to say Enzo Fernandez. And finally, it's Bournemouth versus Luton. Now, this is a game where I feel Luton could do something. Obviously, in the reverse game, in this fixture, I should say, it was suspended and abandoned because of the cardiac arrest to Tom Lockyer. So it's getting replayed. So this is actually the first game, technically, of the season between these two sides before Luton host Bournemouth. But yeah, I think Bournemouth will probably win. But I think Luton could get a goal or two. I'll say Bournemouth 3, Luton 2. Should be a good game, I think. Carlton Morris to score for Luton. Then a goal for Bournemouth from Solanke again. Then we'll say a goal for Kluivert. Luton hit back with another goal from Barkley. And then finally Bournemouth score the next goal with a goal from Tavernier. And those are my predictions for match week number 28 of the 23-24 season. Get your score predictions in the comment section below before that early kickoff of Man United Everton. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye, everyone.